The war was finally over. After years of fighting across the stars, peace had returned. The United Earth Coalition had won the war against the Zereth Empire. Many soldiers came home with medals and memories. Ethan Cole, a young soldier from Earth, came home with quiet eyes and a heavy heart. Ethan had served for 5 years. He had seen too much. He had lost friends, good people, and parts of himself. When he stepped off the transport ship, he didn't feel joy. He only felt tired. He just wanted to rest, to find peace in the quiet mountains where he grew up. He was sent to a base near Denver for debriefing. He answered questions, signed papers, and waited in long lines. Finally, an officer called his name and handed him a file. "You've been granted a reward," the officer said. "One of the high-class Zereth captives. It's part of the peace agreement. They're being given to war veterans." Ethan stared at the paper. It had a name, Lyrie. There was a photo attached. She had pale blue skin, glowing silver eyes, and long white hair. She looked proud and silent. "I didn't ask for this," Ethan said. "It's a gift," the officer replied. "Take it or leave it." Ethan didn't know what to say. He didn't want to own anyone, but refusing the gift might raise questions. He nodded slowly and left the room. The next day, he was taken to a holding center. It was a cold, gray building with guards at every door. Inside, many aliens sat or stood in silence. Ethan was led to a private room. Lyrie stood inside, her hands folded, her eyes watching him. She was tall and elegant. She wore a plain gray robe. She did not speak. "I'm Ethan," he said. She looked at him but said nothing. "I don't want a slave," he added, "but I don't want you to stay in a place like this." Still, she said nothing, but her eyes softened for a moment. Ethan signed the papers. She was released into his care. They left the center and traveled to his home in the mountains. It was a small house made of wood and stone, quiet and far from city. There were trees all around and a river nearby. Lyrie looked out the window during the trip. She did not speak, but she seemed to study everything. At the house, Ethan showed her the guest room. "You can stay here. You're not a prisoner." She nodded once. "I'll cook dinner," he said. "You can rest if you want." She didn't rest. She stood near the window for a long time, staring at the trees. At dinner, she sat across from him. She ate slowly, carefully. She didn't speak until the meal was over. "Why are you kind to me?" she asked. Ethan looked at her. "Because the war's over, and we're both survivors." She didn't reply, but she didn't look away. That night, Ethan lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He had brought home a stranger from a world he had fought. He didn't know what would happen. He only knew that the war had taken enough from both of them. Maybe kindness could be the first step to something new. In the guest room, Lyrie looked up at the stars through the window. She touched the glass lightly. For the first time in years, she wasn't behind a cage. She didn't trust him yet, but she was free to breathe the cold mountain air. And that was a start. The days passed slowly in the mountains. Ethan tried to return to normal life. He fixed things around the house, cut wood for the fire, and went on quiet walks. He didn't talk much. He had seen too much during the war. He needed peace, and the forest gave him that. Lyrie moved around the house like a shadow. She didn't speak unless he asked her something. She cleaned the rooms without being told and cooked simple meals when Ethan forgot to eat. She never complained, but she also never smiled. Ethan didn't try to control her. He didn't give her orders. He spoke to her like a guest, but she still acted like a servant. He could see she didn't trust him yet. One morning, Ethan found her sitting by the river. She was holding a smooth stone and watching the water. "You don't have to work all the time," he said. She looked up, then looked back at the water. "I don't know what else to do," she replied. "You could walk in the forest, or just sit and rest." She nodded, but it was clear she didn't understand the idea of freedom. Her world had been different. She was raised to serve, to obey. That afternoon, Ethan cooked dinner. He tried to make something simple, roasted vegetables and rice. When they sat down to eat, he told her, "This was my mother's recipe. She used to make this when I was little." Lyrie took a small bite, then another. "It's good," she said. He smiled. "Glad you like it." After dinner, He showed her some books. You can read these if you want. They're about Earth history, some stories. She took one and looked at the cover. We had books too. On my planet, we had stories carved into stone and light tablets. Maybe you can tell me one sometime, Ethan said. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. Later that night, Ethan sat outside on the porch. The stars were bright. Lyrie joined him, wrapped in a warm blanket. They sat in silence for a long time. Why did you people fight? She asked quietly. Ethan thought about it. We were scared. Your empire was expanding. Some leaders thought you were going to take over more planets. We were told the same about humans, she said. So we both were afraid, Ethan replied. She nodded. Fear makes people do cruel things. The wind moved through the trees. A small owl called in the distance. Do you miss your home? Ethan asked. Yes, she said. But I don't think it's the same anymore. War changes everything. Ethan looked at her. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. I won't stop you. I know, she said, but I don't know where to go. And here, at least, I can see the stars. Ethan didn't reply. He just looked at the sky with her. The next morning, Lyrie was in the kitchen. She was trying to cook something using human ingredients and some herbs she had brought with her. Ethan watched her from the doorway. Smells good, he said. It's something my mother used to make, she replied. It might not taste the same. They ate together. The food had a strange but pleasant taste. It's different, but I like it, Ethan said. Lyrie gave a small smile. That smile stayed in Ethan's mind for the rest of the day. Later, Lyrie found a small garden beside the house. It was overgrown and full of weeds. She began to clear it. When Ethan saw her working, he joined her. They worked in silence, side by side, pulling weeds and planting seeds. It was simple work, but it brought a strange peace. That night, Ethan gave her a small wooden box. I made this during the war. I kept little things inside, photos, notes. Lyrie opened the box. Inside were a few pictures and a folded cloth. This is your family? She asked. Yes, he said. They're gone now. She closed the box gently and gave it back. Thank you for sharing. You can keep it if you want, he said. Start your own memories. She didn't answer, but she held the box close. In the quiet of the mountain home, something was changing. Two souls from different worlds were learning to live together. The war was over, but a new journey had begun. Ethan woke up early the next morning. The air was cool, and the sun was just rising behind the trees. He stepped outside and saw smoke coming from the garden. Worried, he ran down the path. But when he reached the spot, he saw Lyrie sitting beside a small fire. She was roasting herbs on a flat stone. What are you doing? He asked, catching his breath. These are calming herbs, she said. They help with sleep. Ethan smiled. I haven't slept well in years. I know, she said. I can see it in your eyes. They sat by the fire for a while. Lyrie gave him a small cup of tea made from the herbs. It had a bitter taste, but a warm, comforting feel. That night, Ethan slept deeper than he had in a long time. As the days passed, Lyrie became more comfortable. She started asking questions about Earth, about humans, and about Ethan's past. Ethan told her stories from his childhood, how he used to hike the mountains, fish in the river, and build toy rockets from old cans. Lyrie listened closely. Then she began to share her own stories. She spoke of her homeworld, a planet with floating gardens and glowing rivers. She talked about her mother, who taught her songs and stories, and her father, who was a healer. We used to sing to the stars, she said one night. Sing? Ethan asked. Yes, it was tradition. Each song was like a wish sent into the sky. Will you sing one for me? She looked shy, but after a moment, she began to hum. The melody was soft and slow. It sounded like the wind through the trees. Ethan closed his eyes and listened. It felt like peace. The next morning, Ethan found an old radio in his storage room. He fixed it and showed it to Lyrie. They turned the dial and listened to music from across the world, jazz, country, and soft rock. This is human music. Ethan said, I like it, Lyrie replied. It's full of feeling. They spent the evening listening to songs and laughing at the strange lyrics. Lyra even tried to dance, her movements graceful but unsure. Ethan joined her, and for a few minutes, they forgot the war and everything that came with it. One afternoon, while Ethan was chopping wood, a car pulled up the long road to the house. It was rare for anyone to visit. 3 men stepped out. Ethan recognized them. They were from his old unit. "Ethan," one of them shouted, "we thought you disappeared." He smiled politely, just trying to find some peace. The men walked up the steps. One of them noticed Lyra standing in the doorway. Well, he said, "you got one of them Zareth girls, too?" Ethan's smile faded. "She's not one of them. Her name is Lyra." The men laughed. "You always were soft. You could have sold her and bought a better house." Ethan stood straight. "I think you should leave." The men looked surprised. One stepped forward, but Ethan's face was firm. "You heard him," Lyra said quietly from behind. The men laughed again but backed off. "You've changed, Cole." "Maybe I've just found something better," he said. They drove away, kicking up dust behind them. That night, Lyra sat by the fire, quiet. Ethan joined her. "You don't have to protect me," she said. "Yes, I do," he replied. "You're my friend." She looked at him. "I don't know what to call this. I've never had a friend like you. You don't need to call it anything." Ethan said, "We just live, day by day." She nodded. Then she did something she hadn't done before. She reached out and touched his hand. Ethan didn't pull away. In the days that followed, their routine continued. They worked in the garden, cooked meals, and listened to music. They even started painting the house together. Lyra painted strange, beautiful patterns on the walls, symbols from her world. One night, after a long day, Lyra said, "Do you think peace will last?" "I don't know," Ethan said, "but I hope so." "I used to believe in fate," she said. "Now, I think we make our own future." Ethan looked at her and smiled. "Then let's make a good one." They sat close by the fire, the stars shining above them. 2 souls from different worlds, healing together in the quiet of the mountains. It was a quiet morning. The sun was just rising, and the light touched the tops of the trees. Ethan and Lyra were in the garden, pulling weeds and checking on the plants. The tomatoes were growing well, and the herbs smelled fresh. Lyra looked peaceful. She had learned to enjoy the simple work. Ethan smiled as he watched her. For the first time in a long while, life felt calm. Later that day, Ethan went into town to get supplies. He told Lyra he would be back before sunset. She stayed behind, reading one of the books he gave her. While Ethan was gone, a car slowly drove up the mountain road. Lyra didn't hear it first. When the car stopped near the house, she looked out the window. 3 of the same men who visited before stepped out. They walked toward the front door. One of them knocked hard. "Hey, we just want to talk," the man shouted. Lyra didn't answer. She stepped back and stayed quiet. After a few minutes, the men walked around the house. One of them looked into the window. "She's here. I see her." Lyra felt fear rise in her chest. She went to the kitchen and grabbed a small knife. Her hands shook, but she stood tall. The men laughed. "Come on, girl. You belong with us. You shouldn't be wasting time with a soft human like Ethan." They didn't break in, but they stayed near the porch for a while. Then they finally left, shouting rude words as they drove away. When Ethan returned, he found Lyra sitting on the floor by the door. She was holding the knife tightly. "What happened?" he asked, rushing to her side. "They came back," she said quietly. "They scared me." Ethan felt anger rise inside him. He helped her stand and walked her to the kitchen. "You're safe now. I won't let them come back again." The next morning, Ethan installed security cameras around the house. He also added stronger locks to the doors and windows. He taught Lyra how to use a radio to call for help. "I want you to feel safe here," he said. She nodded. "I do with you." That night, they sat by the fire again. Lyra looked at him with serious eyes. "I don't want to live like this," she said. "Hiding, being afraid." "You shouldn't have to," Ethan replied. "I want to be free," she said. "Truly free." not just living in a house, waiting for others to decide my life. Ethan looked down. Then we should make it official. He got up and went to his room. When he came back, he had a small file of papers. I've been thinking about this. There's a way to release you, legally. It will take some time, but I can do it. Lyrie stared at the papers. Why would you do this? Because it's the right thing, Ethan said. You're not mine. You're your own person. She said nothing, but tears filled her eyes. They began the process the next day. Ethan drove to the city and filed the first set of forms. The woman at the desk looked surprised. You're giving up your war compensation? She asked. Yes, Ethan said firmly. She's not a prize. It took 2 weeks for everything to go through. During that time, Ethan and Lyrie talked more. She began to help him fix things around the house. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. When the last paper was signed, Ethan gave Lyrie a small envelope. You're free now, he said. Lyrie held the paper in her hands. It felt strange, light and heavy at the same time. What will you do? He asked. I don't know, she said. But if I can choose, I want to stay. Ethan's eyes softened. Then stay, as long as you like. From that day, everything felt different. There was no tension, no unspoken rule between them. Lyrie was no longer a guest or a gift from war. She was simply Lyrie. She helped with the garden. She built new shelves in the kitchen. She began to teach Ethan a few words in her language. In return, he showed her how to fix things around the house. They were 2 people building a life, side by side. One night, as they watched the stars again, Lyrie said, I used to think my life was over when I was captured. But maybe it was just the beginning. Ethan looked at her and nodded. It's never too late to start again. Spring arrived in the mountains. Snow melted from the trees, and the river ran faster. Flowers started to grow around the house. The cold days were gone, and the sun felt warmer. Ethan and Lyrie spent more time outside. They worked in the garden, repaired the fence, and took long walks in the woods. Now that Lyrie was free, she walked with her head high. She wore simple clothes that Ethan helped her choose from the town store. People looked at her when they visited the market, but she didn't hide anymore. She was quiet, but she was no longer afraid. Ethan noticed a change. Lyrie smiled more often. Sometimes, she even laughed at his jokes. He didn't try to make her feel anything. He just stayed near, and she stayed near him. One morning, they were planting seeds in the garden when Lyrie said, I want to do something with my life. I want to help people. Ethan looked at her. You already helped me. I mean more, she said. I want to use what I know. I learned healing when I was young. I want to learn more, maybe study human medicine too. Ethan nodded. You should. We can go to the library in town. I'll help you find books. Lyrie touched his arm. Thank you, Ethan. The next few weeks, Lyrie read books about healing, herbs, and human biology. She took notes and asked questions. Ethan helped her whenever he could. She also started mixing her own teas again and gave them to neighbors who came to visit. One old woman from town had a bad cough. Lyrie made her a drink from wild herbs and honey. A few days later, the woman returned with a basket of fruit and said she felt much better. Word spread. More people began to visit. Some were nervous at first, seeing an alien woman in a human house, but Lyrie's calm voice and gentle hands changed their minds. Ethan stood by her side. He didn't speak for her, but he made sure people treated her with respect. Then, one evening, as they sat by the fire, Lyrie said, Ethan, do you ever wonder what comes next? He looked at her. I think about it sometimes, but I don't have a plan. Maybe we should make one together, she said. Ethan smiled. I'd like that. A few days later, Lyrie got a letter. It came from a group of Xerath who had survived the war. They were living on another planet now and trying to rebuild. The letter asked her to join them. They needed her help to teach and lead. Lyrie sat with the letter in her hands for a long time. Will you go? Ethan asked. I don't know, she said. It's my people, my past, but I have something here too. Something real. You don't have to decide now, Ethan said. But whatever you choose, I'll support you. She looked at him with soft eyes. I know. A week passed. Then another. Lyrie didn't answer the letter. One night, there was a knock on the door. Ethan opened it and found a strange group outside, Zareth rebels. They wore dark clothes and had the mark of an old royal clan. "We've come for Lyrie," the leader said. "She is the last daughter of House Valen. She must return." Ethan stepped in front of the door. "She's not going anywhere unless she wants to." "We don't ask permission from humans," the leader said coldly. Lyrie stepped forward. "I am not your captive. I will not return with you." The rebels tried to push forward, but Ethan raised his old rifle. "This is my home. Leave now." The rebels looked at each other, then backed off. "This isn't over," the leader warned. "You will regret this." They disappeared into the woods. That night, Ethan and Lyrie stayed up late. She was shaken, but calm. "They knew who I was," she said. "They want me to lead them, to bring back the Empire." "You don't have to be who they want," Ethan said. "You can choose your own life." Lyrie looked into the fire. "I choose this life. I choose peace. And I choose you." Ethan reached out and held her hand. No more words were needed. Outside, the stars filled the sky. Inside, two hearts beat quietly side by side. And somewhere deep in the forest, shadows moved. But Ethan and Lyrie were no longer afraid. The days after the rebels left were quiet, but tense. Ethan checked the cameras and added more lights around the house. Lyrie helped him, but he saw the worry in her eyes. She kept looking toward the trees, as if expecting someone to return. But no one came. They tried to go back to their normal life. Ethan worked in the garden, fixed a leak in the roof, and cleaned the tool shed. Lyrie made teas, studied her healing books, and helped neighbors who came for her help. But at night, when the house was dark and still, she sat by the window and watched the forest. One evening, Ethan joined her. "You're thinking about them," he said. "I wonder if they'll come back," she whispered. "I don't want to run, but I don't want to fight again either." "If they come, we'll face it together," Ethan said. Lyrie nodded. "I'm not the same as I was. I'm stronger now." Ethan smiled. "You've always been strong." A few days later, they got a message from the local town. A ship had landed nearby. It wasn't human, and it wasn't from the main space stations. The local sheriff was nervous. Ethan offered to check it out. Lyrie went with him. They drove down the long mountain road and reached the small town square. A few people were gathered near the landing site. A silver-gray ship sat quietly in the field. It was shaped like a bird, smooth and elegant. From the ship, a small group stepped out. They were Zareth, but not like the rebels. These ones wore light robes and peaceful symbols. One of them stepped forward. She looked older than Lyrie, but had the same eyes. "Lyrie," she said softly, "you are safe." Lyrie stepped closer. "Who are you?" "I am Sarah. I serve your mother. I now serve peace. We heard the rebels found you. We came to warn you." "Warn me?" Lyrie asked. "The rebels want to take control of lost worlds. They believe bringing you back gives them power. But they are wrong. The war is over. The Empire is gone. You are free." Ethan watched closely. The woman didn't look dangerous. She looked tired, like someone who had lost too much. "We do not ask you to return," Sarah said. "We only offer you this. Help us stop the rebels. If you speak to the other survivors, they will listen. They still remember your family's name." Lyrie didn't answer right away. She looked at Ethan. "What do you think?" she asked. "It's your choice," Ethan said. "But if you go, I go too." Sarah smiled. "You will be welcome." Lyrie thought for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I will help, but only to stop the fighting." The next few days were busy. Lyrie and Ethan traveled with Sarah to nearby settlements where Zareth survivors lived. Lyrie spoke to them in her language. She told them the war was over. That peace was better than power. Ethan stood by her side, quiet but strong. Some listened, some did not. But slowly, Lyrie's voice began to spread. One night, as they camped under the stars, Lyrie sat close to Ethan. "I never thought I would speak to my people again," she said. "You were meant to," he replied. "I still want to come back home." To our little house in the mountains. It'll be waiting for you, Ethan said. She smiled. Not just for me. For us. After 2 weeks, Lyra had spoken to 6 groups. 4 agreed to stay peaceful. The others didn't answer yet, but it was a start. On their way back to house, Sarah said, "You have done more than we hoped." Your voice gave many people hope. Lyra bowed her head. "I only want peace." Sarah looked at Ethan. "You gave her that." "Thank you." Ethan nodded. "She gave me peace too." When they reached the mountain house again, it felt different. It felt like home. The flowers had bloomed, and the garden was full of green life. That evening, Lyra stood on the porch and looked at the sky. Ethan joined her. "We stopped the war from starting again," she said. "You did," Ethan said. "We did," she corrected, smiling. They stood together, hand in hand. The stars above were quiet. No more warships, no more fire in the sky. Just peace. Hard-earned, but real. And in that moment, they knew they had chosen the right path. Together, summer warmed the mountains. The garden grew full and bright. Bees buzzed from flower to flower, and birds sang from the trees. The war, the fear, and the danger felt far away now. Ethan and Lyra had returned home. Their small house stood strong and peaceful. Ethan woke early each morning and made coffee. Lyra sat with him on the porch, watching the sun rise. They didn't speak much in the mornings. They didn't need to. The quiet was full of comfort. One morning, Lyra looked at the valley and said, "I want to build something here, not just a home, something that can help others." Ethan turned to her. "What do you have in mind?" "A school," she said, "for both humans and aliens. A place to learn, to heal, to grow." Ethan smiled. "That's a beautiful idea." They began to plan. Ethan spoke with town officials and builders. Lyra spoke to nearby Zareth and some humans who had moved to the valley. Everyone was curious. Some were unsure, but many were excited. Lyra designed the school with her own hands. She used a mix of human and Zareth style, simple, warm, and open. Ethan helped with the heavy work. They cleared land near the river, marked paths, and built the first walls. Neighbors came to help. A carpenter brought tools. A young woman from town brought seeds for a garden. Children ran around the site, asking questions and laughing. It took weeks, then months, but the school slowly took shape. Lyra taught small lessons under a tree while they waited for the roof. She spoke of planets, plants, and peace. Ethan helped build benches and painted signs. One day, a message arrived. It was from the group of rebels they had faced before. It was short and cold. "We have not forgotten." Ethan showed it to Lyra. "They're still out there," he said. "Yes," she replied. "But they are few, and we are many." They didn't let the message stop them. The school opened 2 weeks later. The first class had 10 children, 5 human, 5 alien. Some were shy, some were loud, but all were curious. Ethan stood at the back as Lyra welcomed them. Her voice was calm and kind. "This is a place where we learn from each other," she said. "Where we listen, where we grow." Ethan felt something stir in his chest. It was pride. It was love. After class, Lyra walked with Ethan down by the river. "I never thought my life would look like this," she said. "Me neither," Ethan said, "but I'm glad it does." She looked at him, serious and gentle. "I want to stay here, with you, for the rest of my life." Ethan took her hand. "Then stay. This is our home." That night, they sat by the fire, as they always did. The stars were bright above. Lyra leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "I have one more dream," she said. "What is it?" he asked. "One day, I want to raise a family here. In this home, in this valley. I want our children to grow up with hope, not fear." Ethan held her hand tighter. "Then let's build that future. Together." The wind was soft, the fire warm. They didn't need anything else in that moment. Over the next year, the school grew. More children came. More teachers joined. Lyra taught healing in Zareth language. Ethan taught Earth history and helped fix anything that broke. They built a second house for guests. They planted more trees and added new paths. The valley became a place of learning and peace. People from far away came to visit. Some stayed. Some returned home with new ideas. Lyrie became known as a wise leader, Ethan as a strong, quiet protector. But they never saw themselves as heroes. They were just two people who chose a different path. And one evening, as the sun set and the garden glowed with golden light, Lyrie looked at Ethan and whispered, "Thank you." He smiled. "For what?" "For saving me, for trusting me, for walking with me." Ethan looked into her eyes. "You saved me too." They stood together, side by side, as the stars began to shine. The war had brought them pain. But from that pain, they had built something new, something strong, something full of love. And in the quiet valley, a human soldier and a former alien captive wrote a new story, one of peace, hope, and shared future.